Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Christopher Coleman? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So first I'll look at the background in this case. I'll move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Christopher Coleman was born on March 20, 1977. He was raised by parents who were both preachers. Religion was a crucial part of his upbringing. Chris had two brothers. In church, they would often claim to speak in tongues. Chris was described as sensitive, shy, and kind. He didn't get into too much trouble when he was younger. One time when his parents were away, he became intoxicated. He felt compelled to confess his actions to his basketball coach. After graduating from high school, he enlisted in the Marines. At age 22, he met a 21-year-old woman named Sherry. She was a military police officer in the Air Force. Sherry became pregnant within 3 months, and the couple decided to get married. They would eventually have two sons named Garrett and Gavin. Chris's parents were not big fans of Sherry. They thought that she trapped Chris by getting pregnant. She wasn't particularly religious, but she became more religious in order to please Chris's parents. Chris and Sherry moved to Columbia, Illinois, which is right outside St. Louis, Missouri, so Chris could take a job working for Joyce Meyer Ministries. Joyce Meyer is a well-known evangelist and millionaire. Her company hired Chris as a security guard. He was promoted to the head of security eventually and was making over $100,000 a year. Chris started having an affair with a woman named Tara Lentz. She was Sherry's best friend in high school. Sherry had long believed that Tara was jealous of her. Chris's behavior started to change. He had normally been a rule follower, adhering to Christian values, but then he started using expletives and drinking a lot. In 2008, a series of threatening emails were transmitted to Chris. The first one was received on November 14. There were threats against him and his family. The ostensible motive was his affiliation with Joyce Meyer. Emails were also sent to Joyce Meyer and her son. One message sent to Chris read, "Tell Joyce to stop preaching the blank. If I can't get to Joyce, then I will get to someone close to her." Other emails suggested that time was running out for Chris's family and that the writer of the threatening messages was always watching. After the emails, written mail was also sent to Chris, like through the post office. The last threatening message was received on April 27, 2009. It ended with, quote, "This is my last warning. Your worst nightmare is about to happen," unquote. Chris went to the police and filed a complaint. A police detective with the Columbia Police Department named Justin Barlow happened to live next to Chris. He was Chris's next-door neighbor. The detective set up a camera to record the mailbox of the Coleman family residence. The camera never captured anything illegal, but it did capture Chris and his sons playing catch in the front yard, which seemed like an unusual activity for someone who was afraid of a mysterious killer. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. This crime takes place in 2009. At this time, Chris is 32, Sherry is 31, Garrett is 11, and Gavin is 9. On May 5, 2009, Chris called Justin Barlow, his neighbor, at 6:42 a.m. He said that he was just at the gym and tried to contact Sherry, but she didn't respond. He was driving home at that moment. Chris was hoping that Barlow could walk over to his house and check on Sherry. Barlow called his dispatcher at the police department. Another officer met him in front of the Coleman family home. They found an open window and climbed through it. Inside the house, they discovered Garrett and Gavin strangled to death in their beds. After this, they found Sherry's body. She had been strangled as well. She had ligature marks on her neck and a black eye. There was red spray paint on the walls containing messages like, "Punished," "I am always watching," and "You have paid." Chris arrived at the house at 6:56 a.m., just before the bodies were discovered. When the police told him what happened, he really didn't say much or express emotions. He didn't ask how his family was killed. The first responders thought that maybe Chris was going into shock. he was taken to the back of an ambulance, where a chaplain noticed scratches on his arm. When he was asked about the scratches, Chris started punching a pillow on a gurney, then claimed that that's where the scratches came from. I guess this was a time-traveling barbed wire gurney. I don't know why they keep making those things. The investigation revealed a lot of information that didn't look too good for Chris. I'll talk about that more in the analysis. The police spoke to Tara Lintz, and they recovered information from Chris's computer. Even though Chris denied having an affair, Tara confirmed that they were having an affair. When the police questioned Chris, he said that his family was alive at the time he departed in the morning. During his interview, he appeared to be crying, but it did not look genuine. Chris was arrested on May 19, 2009, and charged with the murders. He would plead not guilty. After the trial that initially left a jury a little uncertain, they became convinced he was guilty. Christopher Coleman was convicted on May 5, 2011, exactly 2 years after he killed his family. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Was Christopher Coleman actually guilty? A number of people believe that he was not, which seems a little surprising given the evidence. Let's look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Christopher Coleman is guilty, starting with the inculpatory evidence. Chris was having an affair with Tara Lintz. He claimed the relationship started in November, but there was a photograph of him kissing Tara that was dated October. Chris and Tara wanted to convert their affair into a permanent relationship. Tara was applying pressure to Chris to divorce Sherry. Chris had a number of images and videos which were for mature audiences only. He kept a log containing information about Tara. Some people have characterized this as creepy. He had information like her panty size, bra size, eye color, height, the name of their future daughter, and he referenced a day that Tara changed his life, November 5, 2008. 9 days later, Chris started receiving the mysterious, threatening messages. Chris had told Sherry he wanted to divorce. He said that she and his children were ruining his career. Sherry had told a friend of hers that if she died, Chris killed her. The police believed that Chris might lose his job if it came out that he was having an affair and/or he divorced. Joyce Meyer would confirm this was a possibility. So based on the value of Joyce Meyer Ministries, if an employee was engaged in infidelity or divorced, that could be a problem. On May 4, 2009, the day before the murders, Chris called out of work. Joyce Meyer could not remember him ever calling out of work before. Sherry and her 2 sons were murdered before Chris left the house in the morning. This was determined by Michael Baden of HBO's Autopsy fame. He is a very well-known forensic pathologist who has worked on a number of high-profile cases. Baden said that the victims were definitely dead before 5 a.m., but probably dead before 3 a.m. The security camera that Barlow had installed showed that Chris did not leave the house until 5:43 a.m. At the same time, Chris made his first call to Sherry as he was driving away from the house. He claimed that he was trying to wake her up. No pattern like this was found. This was not something he routinely did. It was a departure from his ordinary behavior. Why didn't he simply wake Sherry up in person? He was right there. It doesn't really make sense that he would walk outside and then call her from his phone. At the memorial service for Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin, Chris sent a text message to Tara indicating he missed her. One day after the funeral, he placed balloons and signs that were in his front yard in the trash. As far as those threatening messages, they really did appear to be fake. They were sent from an email address containing the words, "Destroy Chris." Even though messages were also sent to Joyce Meyer and her son, why would "Destroy Chris" be part of the email address? The IP address from the emails matched Chris's IP address. They were sent from his laptop. The writing style of the messages matched other emails Chris had sent. He misspelled the word opportunity in both. His tendency to misplace the apostrophe appeared in both groups of messages. Like in the words won't and don't, he put the apostrophe after the T. Chris also fused words together, like good time and setup. It would appear that Chris started by murdering grammar and moved up from there. The physical evidence was inculpatory as well. Chris had scratches on his arm. As I mentioned, he initially said it was from punching a pillow on a gurney. Later, he would say it was from removing a satellite dish on the roof. I guess the satellite dish attacked him or something. It really didn't want to leave the roof. None of the DNA found in the house pointed conclusively to the presence of a stranger. A red spray paint can and a glove were found next to Interstate 255, which would have been along Chris's route to the gym. About a month before the murders, Chris purchased spray paint consistent with the painted messages on the walls. Moving to the last inculpatory item, the open basement window had not been locked. It was not forced open. Now moving to the exculpatory items. There were no witnesses to the crime. After the murders, there was no paint on Chris. No murder weapon was ever recovered. Other people may have had access to Chris's laptop, and Christopher Coleman had no criminal history. When considering everything, do I think he was guilty? Yes, I think he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and guilty in reality. It doesn't even really seem close. He was in the house when his family was murdered, and he sent himself fake, threatening emails suggesting that they would be killed. There was really almost no doubt in this case. What kind of person could do this? There are no reports of any mental health diagnoses of Christopher Coleman. As far as personality, Chris appeared to be low in openness, like traditional and not creative, above average in conscientiousness. He had a great work ethic, and we see mid-range extroversion, agreeableness, and eroticism. Nothing particularly unusual, nothing that would indicate a tendency to commit homicide. One possibility here is that Chris was simply overwhelmed by the sexual activity with Tara. He wasn't having sex often with Sherry. Perhaps he was not attracted to her anymore, or she wasn't attracted to him anymore. When Tara showed an interest in him and they started having sex, he focused all his energy on that endeavor. He was fixated on that. He did not want to jeopardize the sex in any way. He was afraid of being fired if he was caught having an affair, so he decided to eliminate his wife. He kills his sons because that's the only way his cover story would fit, or because they were a financial burden to him as well. I think that Christopher Coleman may have believed he deserved a better life. He had expressed dissatisfaction with Joyce Meyer. He believed that Joyce Meyer Ministries was a fraud, taking money from people who worked for a living to allow Joyce to fly on private jets and go on expensive trips. He felt that what she was preaching was nonsense. I wonder if Chris looked at her situation and thought that he should be able to have what he wants as well. He may have thought that he had as much talent as she did. In his mind, she wasn't doing anything valuable. Perhaps he was worth more as well. He was going to give up on morality, give up on his belief system, and just do whatever he felt like. The ultimate sense of entitlement. This is a terrifying case for a number of reasons, but one that really stands out is that Chris did not seem particularly unusual. He didn't strike people as overwhelmingly psychopathic or narcissistic. Some people found him to be a little intense and socially awkward, but nothing that would indicate danger. This case has a number of parallels to the case of Christopher Watts, a notorious case featuring a man who was having an affair and killed his family. Here are a few of the similarities between these cases. They both had the first name Christopher. It is a common name. At the time of the murders, Coleman was 32, Watts was 33. Neither man had been affectionate with his wife in the time leading up to the murders. They both had financial stressors. The method of homicide was strangulation. Coleman had 2 sons. Watts had 2 daughters. His wife was pregnant with a son. Both killers were having extramarital affairs, which are relatively new. Both killers took sexually suggestive pictures of their mistresses in a bathroom, among other places. Sex with the mistress was a major part of their motivation. There was an obsession with sex in both cases. Outside observers thought that the families were ideal. They had the perfect lives. Both were unconvincing after the crime. It was obvious that they were responsible, and neither man fit the profile of a killer. I find it interesting that the case of Christopher Coleman is rarely discussed, but the case of Christopher Watts has become notorious. There isn't really a substantial difference between them, not one that would account for the massive difference in the notoriety. Now moving to my final thoughts on this case. Early in the investigation, the police asked Chris what should happen to whoever committed the crime. Chris responded, he should be put away. It would appear that the justice Chris desired for the killer has been realized. In prison, Chris still maintains his innocence. My understanding is that people write to Chris for spiritual advice. I find this curious. How does this discussion between the advice seeker and Chris play out? Hey Chris, I want to talk to you about my desire to have an affair. Do you need any help in other areas? Okay, let's talk about murder. It's been on my mind. Yeah, let's not worry about that one either. All right, well, how about deception? You know what? I think we're done with the spiritual advice session. I don't know about spiritual advice, but I think Chris could use his time in prison to offer insight about being a clumsy and obvious killer. But in prison, there is a lot of competition in that area. Those are my thoughts in the case of Christopher Coleman. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.